Hi, it's John again. I only have 10 minutes and I have a lot to say, so I want to be very quick and fast moving. But I want to do an open letter to Rod Parsley part 3. And this is more or less a response to someone that wrote me about this, and they seem to have a concern about some of the things that I was doing. So let me get into this and open up. But the person says they ran across our video and they'd be happy to answer or address any questions or misgivings that we have. Now, I would encourage you to watch Open Letter to Rod Parsley Part 1 and 2 before we're going any further in this video. It's on our YouTube page. We could give you the whole total context of what I'm talking about. But in a nutshell, during the Da Vinci Code teaching he was doing about 2 or 3 years ago, Rod promised that if we gave him $50, that we'd have a supernatural protection from the enemy, and that God would give us more spiritual discernment, and that we'd make no bad decisions for 1 whole year, and that we'd have uncommon wisdom. So Rod promised this, said that God told him this, and that if we did this, we'd have no bad decisions for a year, and it's all based upon me giving him $50. So in its essence, what I believe, breaking what Peter said in Acts chapter 8, that he told Simon, you thought that you could buy the gift of God with money, and he told him to go away, you are cursed, basically. Anyway, so the first thing that the questioner had a concern about is, have I contacted Rod Parsley Ministries? Yes, I have. We've sent multiple emails. Now, other ministries I work with have gone farther than that in their contact efforts. The reason I didn't go any further is because they got nowhere. So, anyway, but we did our part. I checked my email. Why can't they check theirs? But the problem is, most likely, folks, that while this person here in this email that he wrote accused me of being out of order, and that if Rod didn't answer my emails, probably because God wasn't using me as the one that would talk to him, etc., etc., etc. Well, sir, there are lots of other logical possibilities of why Rod would not respond if his ministry is the money-making scam that I believe it is. He could be, well, logically he could be too busy. That could be one thing. They probably get thousands of emails a day at Rod Parsley Ministries. Or he could have people instructed that when they see these emails to immediately delete them. We have no number of things that it could be as to why it's not responded. Not so simple as it just not God using me or whatever this person supposedly said. Now, he did make several accusations. Again, this is why you need to watch Part 1 and Part 2 if you care about this and you care about our integrity or anything else. Now, keep in mind what I like to call the curse you charismatics that respond most often, who mostly have unproductive and comments to say. They take constant little jabs and then have the little backhanded compliments like God bless at the end of the email. But they're always jam-packed full of false accusations and insults. So I want to cover that real quick. He said that, quote, in Part 1 and Part 2, we were taking part in, quote, cannibalistic Christianity. He also accused me of mudslinging, mocking and making fun of people, quote, name-calling, quote, mudslinging, and, quote, mocking them on YouTube. Of course, he naturally mocked me multiple times, which I'm wondering if me mocking someone's wrong and how is him doing it better. But anyway, I don't know. Again, this goes to some of the hypocrisy. But however, friends, you'll see that I did not mock or make fun. We simply brought to question things that we believe are blatantly anti-Christian and anti-biblical. And we see this not only from the New Age influence that has come into the church, but we see this directly in Scripture, that a principle of Scripture was broken. And we, like the Bereans who checked out Paul to see if the things that he said was true, that's all we did. We went to the Scriptures in Acts chapter 8, and we see that the principle of buying the wisdom of God is not right. That's all we did, friends. It's that simple. Now, again, Rod Parsley, the reason we're questioning him is who's he accountable to? We have no idea. Our ministry is a local body. Our ministry is a small ministry. We are accountable to a local body. We are not out there running amok, doing what we want to do, Lone Ranger Christians. We are accountable to a local church. The main, well, getting through all the fluff and the duff and all this other things that he said, you can see I got 4 pages of font 8 of pontificating that this gentleman sent to me. However, he did not once ever do what he promised to do in the first sentence of ever even dealing. He promised to defend this. He did not defend it, never even got close to it, and even began to try to ask me questions on other subjects. I'm kind of jumping around here, but the main thrust of his argument against what we were doing is that in Matthew 13 and Matthew 18 are supposedly rebuking what I was doing. Now, he calls what me and friends of mine in ministry calling into question what we believe are false doctrines, he calls them church discipline issues. You sir are wrong. They are not church discipline issues. These are Berean issues where we search the scriptures to see if what Rod is saying is true. Matthew 13 talks about the parable of the kingdom of heaven is likened to a man which sowed good seed in a field. And then he talks about why he slept. Someone came and sowed tares among his wheat. And the servants come to him and said, "Didn't you sow good seed? Where are these tares coming from?" And the master said, "An enemy has done this." And then the servants go, "Well, should we go gather them up?" And he said, "No, because if you go try to tear the tares out, you might tear the wheat up as also." I believe this is clearly a parable of Jesus talking about the church as a whole during the church age. And the harvest referred to at the end of this parable in Matthew 13 is the second coming. And we see several references to this as idea in Revelation and Matthew 24 when the elect angels should gather. The angels should go to the four winds and gather his elect, the wheat from the tares. We see the judgment of the goats and the sheep. We see this. I believe that's pretty solid foundation of what this parable is talking about. It has nothing to do with people questioning the doctrines of false prophets. Now on to Matthew 18:15, and that was Matthew 13:24-30, if you'd like to read that for yourself. Matthew 18:15-20, it says more over there, and well, it goes into another thing, but the core scripture is 15-17 for sake of time. It basically says, if your brother trespasses against thee, go to him personally. If he will not hear thee, get a brother or two witnesses and go. And if he'll not hear thee again, bring the church. Well, here's the problem with that. It's not even talking about searching the scriptures to see if what Rod says is true. This is clearly that this is a church discipline issue in which someone sins against me. Now, has Rod sinned against me? No, he hasn't. I am simply watching Rod on the TV, just doing and saying whatever he feels like and blaming God on it, and I call something into question. He hasn't sinned against me at all, so again, this scripture doesn't apply. So it's very simple. So I asked him for more scriptures because these in context, and context is the key to everything. They are not at all talking about what we were talking about, but yet the Bereans certainly is, even though he mocked that in these letters. Prove all things, test the spirits, contend for the faith. I can give you scores and scores and scores and scores of scriptures. And Paul in Acts 20 warned that false prophets would arise from them own selves. We see that Jesus rebuked one of the churches in Revelation for not dealing with the false doctrine. In fact, one of the consequences of Matthew 13, if you read it the way he's reading it, if I'm to assume that this is for every little local body and that the pastor just says to himself, well, I don't want to root up the tares because I might root up the wheat, that means that pastor you can't reach any other conclusion except that this pastor, according to him, is not supposed to deal with false doctrine. And sir, I'm sorry, you may not say, well, that's not what I'm saying, but that is what you were saying if you use this verse and apply it to me. The consequences is that you will not deal with error, because that's what it's saying. You don't want to tear up the wheat, right? Well, no, that's not at all what it's saying. In fact, we are commanded to deal with these things as Christians. Okay, and there's a time and a place, and there's wisdom involved. You don't go around insulting people. But anyway, I hope I've dealt with everything I want to say very quickly, because I only have 10 minutes to do it. We are commanded to deal with these things. We are supposed to be Bereans. We are to search the scriptures. We are to know what is real, what is false. And my friends, if you teach a false doctrine, I will question you. And I am open to that speculation as well. If you listen to part 2, you hear us talking about that. We encourage people to check us out. There are essential doctrines of Christianity that we're not allowed to disagree on. There's a lot of issues we are allowed to disagree on. There are ones that are not so plain, and there are ones that not have anything to do with salvation. But if they are blatantly plain and they do have to do with salvation, we have to agree on those things. So Rod claiming that God is going to impart to me some type of special grace to give me wisdom on the very sole basis of giving him $50, that's not the God of the Bible, and it's blatantly against what I believe is very clear in Acts chapter 8. So if anyone else has any questions or better arguments than this, feel free. I have an open ear, but so far I have yet to see, and all this, he never even once dealt with what he promised to deal with. He never offered an answer for why we're not. In fact, he goes on to say, well, I really don't want to deal with the specifics, but wait a minute, my challenge was for a specific, and you responded.